Hi, I'm Relievo and this is the second part of my Baldur's Gate 3 primer, where we get into combat. First things first, the combat in Baldur's Gate 3 is turn-based, not real-time. There's also environmental interactions, like Divinity Original Sin 2, although not as prominent. Now that's out of the way, let's discuss a combat encounter. A combat encounter consists of rounds, and rounds consist of character turns. And character turns consist of actions, bonus actions, special actions, reactions, and movement. The flow of a combat encounter goes like this. Combat starts. Initiative order is determined. A round begins. It starts with a character on the top of the initiative order, and once every character has done their turn, it goes back to the top of the order and starts a new round. This goes on until one side is victorious, obviously without video game shenanigans. And that's how combat works. Alright, let's break that down into sections. First of all, the initiative order. The initiative system has already saw some changes. Larian want to implement a team-based initiative in which the whole team goes first and the other one goes second. Think XCOM or XCOM 2, but that was changed based on feedback, and now the initiative system is much more faithful to D&D 5e and quite more traditional. More like the XCOM Chimera Squad if you've played that. Character initiative is based on the initiative roll, but the difference is, if the characters on the same team are next to each other in the initiative order, their turns are interchangeable or they can go at the same time. Let's go back to the initiative. How does that work? At the start of combat encounter, characters will roll for initiative. Initiative roll goes like this. It's D20 plus your initiative bonus. If you have no idea what those are, I suggest you watch the first video of this series, which we talk about dice and modifiers and sort of character creation, which I will link down below, or the eye on the left side, right side. Also, forget what I said about alignment back there. Alignment is back. Anyway, the initiative bonus is typically just your dex modifier, unless you are proficient in it, which is very rare. The character with the highest initiative goes first, followed by the second highest, and so on and so forth. And that is how the turn order or initiative order is determined. Now, the character turns. Alright, this is where we go down to the nitty-gritty of the stuff. A character can do these things on their turn: an action, a bonus action, special actions, and movement. Reactions are not part of your turn typically. You do your reactions outside of your turn. Let's start with explaining movement. Movement is like a pool of resource. It's typically determined by your race, and some classes gives bonus to movement. Movement, as I said, is a pool of resource that you can use it all in one go or broken up by different actions. For example, you move 10 feet, you do an action, move 10 feet, do a bonus action, move 10 feet. That's all 30 feet. Typically, that's the max movement for every race. That's pretty much how movement works. But in difficult terrain, like marsh, swamps, thin ice over a lake, which uses up double your movement. And also, you need to be careful when moving, because if you are adjacent to an enemy, they can attack you if you leave their threatened range. An attack of opportunity, a reaction. Reactions are actions that you can do on certain triggers, typically outside of your turns. This is a system that they are still working out, but as of right now, basically you pick reactions that you will use if certain triggers are met. For example, somebody casts a spell, you cast a counterspell. Somebody leaves your threatened range, you'll use attack of opportunity, right? Examples of reactions are attack of opportunity, protection, fighting style, counterspell, shield spell, and there's a lot more. Alright, I'm gonna explain attack of opportunity. As I said earlier, you have to be careful when leaving a threatened range. A threatened range is typically 5 feet from the enemy. So if you leave that, they get to take an attack. Basically an attack action, which I will explain when we go into action. This range. Melee threatened range is 5 feet unless they have reach, which is typically 10 feet. That's why you should use your movement very carefully, especially if you're a melee character, because attack of opportunity is a bitch. Now, let's go to actions. Actions are the big impact things that you can do on your turn. Let's look at the bar here. Attack, cast a spell. I'm not gonna explain that right now because spell casting deserves a video of its own. Dash, disengage, which is now baked into jump, which is a bonus action. Dodge, I don't see dodge in this. Help, I think this is help. Sneak, shove is a bonus action now. I'm gonna explain most of this. First of all, sneak, which we saw in the Paxis demo, which the hand tried to do and failed. Alright, sneak is an action that lets you hide from the enemy and gain an advantage on your next attack. Attacking or casting spells remove hide. Alright, stealth roll is a stealth check. You know what that means, right? D20 plus your stealth modifier. Help is an action that gives another character adjacent to you advantage on their next attack. Dodge is not seen here in the action bar, but in case they added, dodge puts you on a defensive stance that gives enemies that attack you until your next turn disadvantage. Disengage is replaced by jump, which is a bonus action. But I'm gonna explain disengage anyway. Disengage means that you will not take an attack of opportunity if you leave the threatened range of the enemy. So that's a pretty big deal for melee characters. Dash is you gain another full movement. You don't double your movement, you gain another full movement. So if you already use your movement, you don't double that movement, you gain another full movement. So if you have 30 feet of movement and you use dash, you will have 60 feet of movement. If you use 15 movement already and you use dash, you gain another 30 feet, which will leave you in 45 movement on your pool. Cast a spell, you cast a spell. Last but not least, attacking. First, you have to determine your attack is range. Melee, typically 5 feet, unless you have reach, like a polearm, spear, halberd, that's a polearm. Anyway, or if you're having a bow, a ranged weapon, you typically have 120 feet range, or 60 feet range, so yeah, it's a ranged weapon. Ranged weapons attacks on a disadvantage on melee. If you are using range, you need to be in range. So let's talk about the roll that you're gonna, the attack roll. It's D20 plus your attack modifier. Your attack modifier is strength or dex, depends on your weapon type. We're not gonna get into that until we go into items, where we explain everything about items, and that deserves another video. Plus your proficiency, if you are proficient with the weapon. And your attack roll will go against the target AC, which is basically the DC of the roll. Your armor class is your base armor plus your dexterity modifier. That's it. That's your armor class. So the base armor was no armor, 10, light armor, 11, medium armor, 14, heavy armor, 18. These are the basic book values, which obviously can be modified by Larian. And medium armor typically gives you a max of 2 dexterity modifier. And heavy armor typically does not let you add your own dexterity modifier because of a high base armor. Oh, and heavy armor, you have stealth disadvantage and the strength requirement is 15. Gotta keep that in mind. You have to meet or beat the AC to successfully land a hit. When you land a hit, you roll a damage roll, which is a weapon damage die and your damage modifier. Each weapon has a damage die. For example, a dagger has 1d4 piercing, a hand axe is 1d6 slashing, a quarterstaff is 1d6 bludgeoning, and there's also weapon properties that changes these things, but we're not gonna get into that. Alright, the bludgeoning, piercing, slashing are damage types. These are commonly found in non-magical attacks, like a weapon attack, a bite attack, claw attacks, tail attacks, etc. The rest of the damage types are acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, thunder. Do not confuse thunder with lightning. Thunder is... they should have just called it sonic, but hey. Those are the damage types that are in the book. You can also have resistance, immunity, or vulnerability to any of these damage types. Immunity means you will not take any damage from that type. Resistance means any damage you take from that type is halved. This is calculated after all modifiers are added to the damage roll. For example, if you've been hit for 1d6 plus 3 slashing, you'll take half of the result. For example, 1d6 results in 3 plus 3, 6. You'll have that, you take 3 slashing damage. Vulnerability, on the other hand, means the damage you take from that type is doubled. This damage is also calculated after all modifiers are added. So, if we take that 1d6 slashing earlier, you'll take 12 damage. There's also damage reduction, which is a flat damage that you reduce the damage roll from the enemy. So this is how the final calculation of damage you take goes, because there are priorities. There's an order on how to calculate the damage you take. First off, the damage is rolled. If there's a save, typically from spells, so we're gonna push that aside for now. You deduct the damage reduction, which is typically damage reduction of 1, 2, or 3, and then you calculate with resistance or vulnerability. That's how it's calculated. And we've talked about double damage. So let's talk about criticals. Critical miss or critical hit happens when you roll a natural 1 or a natural 20, respectively. Natural rolls are the d20 roll's value without the modifiers. That's your natural roll. So if you roll a 1, that's a natural 1. If you roll a 20, that's a natural 20. Now, critical miss always misses, critical hits always hits, regardless of modifiers or AC. Aside from always hitting, critical hits double your damage dice, not your damage. This is different from vulnerability, as it only doubles your damage dice, not the modifiers. You gotta keep that in mind. So in the earlier example of 1d6 plus 3, so instead of rolling 1d6, you're gonna roll 2d6 plus 3. So let's say the first one was 3, then you're gonna roll another d6. So let's say that's 6. So 3 plus 6 is 9 plus 3 is 12. So that's your critical hit damage. If they are vulnerable to it, that will get doubled, which is 24. If they are resistant to it, that will get halved, which is 6. That's how critical hits are calculated. Critical rolls also affects death saving throws. Death saving throw happens when you get damage enough to reduce your hit points to 0, which will put you unconscious, or in Baldur's Gate 3 terms, down. When it is that character's turn, they will make a death saving throw, in which you roll a d20 versus a DC of 10. If you fail, you gain a failure or a red bar. If you succeed, you gain a success, a blue bar. A downed character reaches 3 red bars, that character dies. If they gain 3 blue bars, they go back 1 up. Natural 1 gives 2 red bars, and natural 20 instantly gets you back up. I don't know how much HP because they haven't explained the natural 20 rules on death saving throws on Baldur's Gate 3. This is different from 5e, where reducing you to 0 puts you to unconscious. A side note, critical rolls based on sourcebook is only applied to attack rolls and death saving throws. Criticals does not apply to saving throws or ability checks. But based on the info we have, out of combat ability skill checks, they might apply the natural rolls for 2 reasons. This is speculation on my part, by the way, so don't take this as gospel. The first reason is the fact that Larian is putting a big focus on the dice itself when doing these checks. And the other reason is that applying modifiers into the DC rather than to your roll, which means the natural roll is in the forefront of these checks. Yeah, that's my opinion, or my theory. Again, theory. Anyway, let's go back to combat. Getting attacked while downed state gives you red bar. Alright, speaking of unconscious, there's a thing on the action bar which is called knock unconscious. which specifies the attack that you will do is non-lethal damage. We still haven't seen these in action, so I'll assume it's a normal attack, but instead of killing them outright, it just knocks them out. Which is, I don't know what for, maybe you have to interrogate them or save them. Anyway, as I said, we haven't seen them in action. That is for attacking and damage. Also healing. Healing down people, get them back up. So heal them. Heal people that are down. Alright, now for bonus actions. From what we know, these are the bonus actions. Bonus attack, if you're dual wielding, casting a bonus action spell. Jump, which is over fucking powered. Use potion, shove, or throw. If you are dual wielding, light or finesse weapon, you can make an attack with the offhand weapon as a bonus action. You don't add your ability modifier to the damage roll of this attack unless stated otherwise. You can jump as a bonus action, which also acts as a disengage as a bonus action, which also gives you free movement as a bonus action. I assume or hope that this will change moving forward. Using a potion in Baldur's Gate 3 is a bonus action. Potions are a great way to heal without using the limited spells you have. Potions of healing, for example, heals for 2d4 plus 2. Yeah, that's healing. Throw is also a bonus action. You can also use your bonus action to shove, which pushes them away from you, possibly make them prone. Prone is a condition. A condition is a state of a character that gives different bonuses or penalties. For example, a melee character attacking a prone target gets advantage. A ranged character attacking a prone target has disadvantage. This is the list of conditions: blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, grappled, restrained, paralyzed, poisoned, prone, stunned. And I'm gonna explain that, but that's gonna take a while, so I'll probably do that on a different video. Yeah. So I think that's it. That's the basic combat knowledge that you need to know. On the next video, we'll discuss spellcasting. By the way, there's a panel from hell on August 18, 10 AM PST. Go to twitch.tv/reboot so you can watch that with me and ask questions. Until then, keep it real.